Good morning and welcome to a very special interview show of The Prode. Today we are here once again with a discussion with the author of another inspiring and insightful book called No More a Civil Servant. No More a Civil Servant, authored by Anil Swarup, retired IAS, is an enthralling read that gives hope to all UPSC aspirants out there. It shatters various myths and highlights the good work done by civil servants. The book gives hope despite the adverse circumstances that a civil servant faces during his career. The link to the book is attached in the description box below, so do check it out. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and a very warm welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you here.
Very good morning to you.
Sir, I would like to begin the discussion by asking that what made you write a book on this topic and what was your motivation behind the same?
The third book that I wrote, No More a Civil Servant, was on account of my ailment last year when I was rendered, physically fairly handicapped on account of the treatment that I was undergoing. And I wanted to keep myself occupied. And that was the reason why I thought to write this third part of the trilogy, the first two being not just a civil servant and ethical dilemmas of a civil servant. But the motivation here was slightly different. This motivation came from my understanding of negativity that pervades in the society, where everyone feels that good cannot be done. In fact, I started this movement, Nexus of Good, immediately after my retirement, just to dispel misapprehensions in the minds of many that good cannot be done. I had observed as Secretary School Education throughout the country that wonderful, wonderful work was being done both by the government officers as well as by non-governmental organizations. And that made me believe that even in these difficult set of circumstances, good work can be done. So how do you illustrate and demonstrate that good work can be done is by giving such examples of such people and institutions who have gone on to do good work despite adverse set of circumstances. So No More a Civil Servant is primarily a description of such people and organizations who've done wonderful work. And the second aspect of this book is that since I ceased to be a civil servant, how have I perceived my last few years in the government and what has been the journey after retirement? So there are primarily two aspects to this, related aspects to this book. One is my existence as a non-civil servant, as a common human being. And the second is providing, scope and platform to such people and institutions who've done wonderful work.
Yeah. So my question was that, is this book specifically targeted for the civil servant aspirants or people outside this domain can also get benefited from it?
Not really. This book is not targeted to any specific individual. It is for everyone to start believing that good can be done because it is being done. And otherwise it's all gyan. You keep telling people you should do this, you should do that. My take is slightly different on that. My take is that you should do that because it is being done. It is not that it should be done. It's not merely in the normative domain. It is in the domain of actual functioning. The numbers may not be very high, but they demonstrated that good can actually be done. So this book per se is not merely for aspirants. Of course, it is also for them to understand that in the government also a lot of good work can be done if they so desire, as has been demonstrated by a large number of officers. So it is also for aspirants. My second book was basically primarily for serving civil servants and for aspirants. There again, the idea was to dispel misapprehensions about civil service. So both these books in that sense are an attempt to dispel some of the misapprehensions that exist about civil service and government.
Yeah. Okay, sir. So in your book, you talk about various myths that revolve around in the mind of people about civil servants. So my question to you is that as someone who has served in various capacities as a civil servant, what according to you is the biggest myth that you have heard about the civil service and what is the reality associated with it?
The biggest myth about civil servants, for a variety of reasons, and I don't want to go into those reasons, is that one, every bureaucrat is corrupt. And second, every bureaucrat is inefficient. So this is a myth that people like to develop. As I said, there are a variety of reasons for people to believe that. As an insider, I saw phenomenal officers who did phenomenal work, and that some of which gets reflected in these pages that I have penned down. But a large number of officers do a wonderful job. I have not quoted this in this book, but in my previous book, Ethical Dilemmas of Civil Servant, it actually begins with this. दिखाई कम दिया करते हैं बुनियाद के पत्थर, जमीन में दब गए जो इमारत उन्हीं पे कायम है. And because there is that quintessential dilemma, and this is the couplet with which the book begins with. मुख्तसर सी जिंदगी के अजब से अफसाने हैं, यहाँ तीर भी चलाने हैं, परिंदे भी बचाने. So it's tough. It's tough for civil servants, but despite this environment, I think a large number of civil servants have performed very well.
Yeah. So you talk about adverse circumstances that a civil servant faces during his or her career. So can you share a personal account related to same, like especially when you were working with the state government?
There are a variety of adversities that exist around you. Number one is the political pressures that come on a civil servant, the political environment that on occasions becomes pretty perverse, as I witnessed in some of the years that I went through. This is not to say that all politicians are bad. There are a large number of politicians who are wonderful, wonderful people and very good leaders, but quite a few of them are the ones that you talk about more often. So it becomes difficult for you to function with them because they want their work to be done irrespective of what the provisions are, and then they hold it against you on occasions. So that is one, the political environment. The other, of course, is the social environment in which they work, which right now it is even more difficult, where the society seems to be fairly divided on communal and caste lines big time, and to bring everyone together and get things moving. There are other challenges, like the challenges of the relationship between center and state at this point in time, when both of them are at war with each other, and especially as All India Service Officer, you have to keep them together. And it's not very easy. I mean, it's very easy to pass a judgment sitting outside. But when a chief secretary is asked not to attend a meeting of the prime minister by the chief minister, what does he do? It's not very easy. I mean, everyone says he should have done this, he should have done that. I've been in such situations before. So it's the socio-political environment. Then, of course, the economic environment also. The economic that you are tasked to carry out jobs where sufficient funds are not available. So how do you go about managing those funds? The whole economics of scarcity has to be managed. Then there are many other challenges, but these are the primary challenges and pressures that come on a civil servant when he functions. Then, of course, the all-pervasive corruption that happens. So to exist spotlessly and do that. So, for example, when I was in coal, initially there was a bit of a problem, but then we did overcome. It's not that all these challenges cannot be overcome, but they can be. And finally, there is this. There are these 5 C's. One of them being the judiciary, where you don't know which what would be the decision. In my career of 38 years, I don't think I had serious problems with either with politicians or anybody outside. My serious problems were the judiciary, in the sense that at some point in time, I felt their only job is to grant stay orders. So I used to ask them, please ask me to do something instead of just staying every damn thing. And they were only concerned in staying things, even at the end of my career, close to my end of my career. I remember I was trying to sort out a few things in the education sector, where, to give you an example, which is narrated in my second book, where I was a bit aghast to see that children were getting 100 out of 100 in English literature and Hindi literature. And I couldn't believe that this could happen. So I found out and I discovered that all boards were spiking these marks. So I thought, let's set it right. And I spoke to all the chairpersons of the boards. They all agreed. We issued instructions, and suddenly there's a stay order from the High Court. I mean, I was shocked. I said, what's this going on? So the suggestion was that you do it next year. Sure enough, that I would have retired by then, and no one would take this initiative to continue what I called a farce, farcical illusion, as I say in my book. So, there are all sorts of constraints within which a civil servant works. And sometimes I feel it's a miracle that they're able to do, but quite a few of them do those miracles. Those miracles don't get to be known because large number of civil servants want to remain in the background and do their work quietly.
Yeah. So how difficult is it for a civil servant as far as the transition in the roles are concerned, especially if we compare the roles related to ministry with the role related to the district administration? How difficult is the transition?
It is not very difficult. This transition is not very difficult because the fundamental attributes required to function in a district are not so very different from fundamental attributes in the secretariat also. There are differences because the leadership roles gets transformed. So as district magistrate, You are leading the district teams. In the secretariat, you do not have that much of a leadership role. But I think you have to be equally perceptive, receptive, sharp. You should be able to analyze the issues that come to you. You should be able to take decisions. You have to be decisive. You have to trust people around you. These are the attributes that are required, whether you're in the district or at the state level. These attributes come handy.
Yes, sir. So how significant is ethics in the career of a civil servant, and what are some of the associated risks? Also, could you share a personal account related to it?
To me, ethics is extremely critical for an officer, not merely in the in the terms of morals, but in terms of practicality also. As I write in my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, ethical behavior pays. And to me, ethical behavior is much beyond pure honesty or financial honesty. So, for example, I say that if you support your subordinate when he's not in the wrong, to me, it's ethical to do that. I did that throughout my career. I did pay a price to begin with, so to say. But over a period of time, I got a lot of response, a lot of commitment, a lot of trust from those employees, and my job could be done. As a leader, you cannot do everything on your own. So you have to have your team around you. And then you have to give that comfort to the team that in case anything goes wrong, in case there are bona fide mistakes, you are there to protect them. And if you do that, to me, that's ethical. If you do that, ultimately, they will work for you. And if that happens, you work as a team and you deliver a lot. So to me, ethical behavior is necessary for every individual. And ethics is much beyond pure financial honesty. Ethics is basically my understanding of what is right and wrong. And as I keep saying, that can also change over a period of time. But fundamentally, we all in the heart of heart know what is right and what is wrong. And if you don't do what your heart tells you what is right, then you could be in trouble at some point in time. And I have discovered during my entire career of 38 years that an ethical behavior or ethical conduct, it pays you in the long run. I have retired for the past 4 years now. And, I can call up any officer who's worked with me. And I've had a phenomenal experience of getting the response from whoever has interacted with me. And that is something which I pride in, because maybe some people might feel that I was going out of the way. I was being too much trustworthy of my officers. I was delegating a lot. I was protecting a lot. But I felt that that is what is required. I'm not saying to protect somebody who's doing anything wrong, but I would have gone any distance to protect the person who's doing the right thing, who's honest. I did that. And as I said earlier, I did pay a price on occasion, but that was worth the price to be paid to gain their trust. And I did have get a lot of trust, and they work very hard. I do say that I walked away with a lot of credit during my career, but I think the real walking was done by my team. What I did was to enable them to do what they can do best, to give them the environment in which they could, perform as well as they can. And that, I think, comes out of your ethical way of your conduct.
Yeah, so I would like to conclude the discussion by asking that what else does your book has to offer to aspiring civil servants? We know that it's not just limited to civil service, but what else does it has to offer? And, is there anything else you would like to add about your book for our audience?
See, first of all, as I said in the beginning, aspirants have to be very clear in their mind as to why are they joining civil service. And if they're not clear, then even if they qualify for the civil service, their life will be miserable. And I have seen a large number of civil servants, even the IAS officers, some even toppers of the service, making life hell for themselves and others. So it is very essential for every aspirant to understand what the civil service has to offer. Surprisingly, contrary to the general understanding, civil service offers everything. You can actually do something, you can do something, thrive and survive. You can do nothing, yet thrive and survive. You can be honest, you can thrive and survive. You can be dishonest, you can still thrive and survive. But either way, there are problems. Honest functioning can have problems. Dishonest functioning can have problems. The choice is yours. That's the second point that probably the book tells us, is that each individual who aspires to become a civil servant and does become a civil servant has a choice. He has a choice of the path that he has to follow. And finally, what the book offers to the civil servant is the enormous amount of sense of satisfaction that he can derive once he becomes a civil servant by doing what he probably cannot do outside the civil service, because the domain is so vast that you'll be able to influence lot many people. And the amount of kick, the term that I used in Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, the sense of satisfaction that you get cannot be compared with anything else. It is absolutely amazing. I call them my Bharat Ratnas, Bharat Ratna moments in the book. But I think there is a lot that you can do. And one more point to add, if you come under the illusion of getting a lot of power in the civil service, then you are surely getting into trouble. The service does take care of you. There is a lot of recognition of good work here, and that is good. But if you are gunning for, or if you want power and prestige to be the primary determinant of you getting into the civil service, you could be in trouble. Though, of course, you will have power, you'll have a lot of prestige, but it can't be your top priority getting into the civil service. If that be the case, you read these books and you will understand what I'm saying.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Really hope that civil servant aspirants, as well as the people who have joined civil service, will get a lot of learnings from this book. And I request my audience to check out the link in the description to order their copies. Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you, Ritwij. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.